hours, and today 4 of them are dead, including the U.S. ambassador to Libya, the dedicated Chris Stevens. And here at home, flags are flying at half-staff in their honor as tonight American embassies around the world have been put on alert, warned against demonstrations and violent attacks, and particular focus on these 7 you see on the map. 7 U.S. embassies. U.S. Marines have been rushed to Libya, and an urgent investigation has begun. Who did this, and did al-Qaeda play a role? Our team is out covering this story across the country and across the Middle East tonight. And ABC senior foreign affairs correspondent Martha Raddatz starts us off right now. Martha.
Diane, we are getting more and more detail by the hour, but tonight we know that during that nearly 5 hours of horror, the ambassador went missing and his body would not be recovered for 12 hours.
They came in darkness. 20 heavily armed attackers, swift, savage, and deadly. The Libyan security guards protecting the American consulate fired back, but were overwhelmed. There were no U.S. Marines to help. The main building of the consulate was quickly set ablaze. Inside, on a planned visit from Tripoli, American Ambassador Chris Stevens, along with several others, trapped between the flames and the gunfire, separated by heavy dark smoke and struggling to breathe. 4 Americans would not make it, at least 2 believed to have died from smoke inhalation. The group including Sean Smith, an information specialist, husband and father of 2.
This is an attack that should shock the conscience of people of all faiths around the world. We condemn in the strongest terms this senseless act of violence.
A terror group affiliated with al-Qaeda claimed responsibility for the well-coordinated attack. U.S. officials are still trying to determine whether it was timed to the anniversary of 9/11, intended to send a deadly message to America, or whether it was linked to an anti-Islam movie that had sparked a protest at the U.S. Embassy in Cairo, Egypt, just hours before the attack. Still, there are questions tonight over the security at the consulate. On this anniversary of 9/11, the consulate was taken totally by surprise. They had detected no specific threats. And for more than 5 hours after the attack, the State Department could not confirm the ambassador's whereabouts. In the chaos, he had been carried off by a group of Libyans who delivered him to a local hospital. His body not recovered for 12 hours.
There's no way to eliminate security risk. What you try to do is manage it, and you try to look at overall what are your objectives with the understanding that these can be dangerous circumstances.
All Americans who were in Benghazi have now been evacuated to Europe. There are also 3 Americans who were wounded, one of them seriously, Diane.
And Martha, the president said today in his statement, his public statement, make no mistake, we will work with the Libyan government to bring justice to the killers. So what is underway tonight?
Well, the U.S. is promising justice and is right now trying to track down those killers. The Libyan government has promised cooperation, and the FBI is involved as well.
Okay, Martha, thank you. And I know you'll continue reporting this story. And as you know, American officials are moving right now to protect the more than 9,000 men and women in the U.S. Foreign Service, so many of them braving dangers abroad. The names of their fallen comrades will be etched on a wall at the State Department. And today, President Obama paid his respects there. And Secretary Clinton spoke with fierce passion about their service. Tonight, ABC's John Carl has more about those who died.
The war was still raging when he first arrived in Libya last year. Ambassador Chris Stevens fully embraced one of the most dangerous diplomatic missions in the world.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Chris Stevens, and I'm the new U.S. ambassador to Libya.
He risked his life to stop a tyrant, then gave his life trying to help build a better Libya.
John McCain was with Ambassador Stevens when Libya celebrated its first ever free elections.
Chris Stevens was one of the finest men I've ever known in my life. He loved the Libyan people. They loved him.
Today on the streets of Benghazi, the Libyan people grieved for a friend. One sign saying, "Sorry, people of America."
It's especially tragic that Chris Stevens died in Benghazi because it is a city that he helped to save.
3 other Americans died with the ambassador, including Sean Smith, in Libya on a brief assignment.
He was a father to 2 young children, Samantha and Nathan. They will grow up being proud of the service their father gave to our country.
2 other still unnamed Americans died as well, diplomats who gave their lives representing the United States of America.
All over the world, every day, America's diplomats and development experts risk their lives because they believe that the United States must be a force for peace and progress in the world.
Jonathan Karl, ABC News, Washington.
And now, for the bigger picture, we turn to ABC's Global Affairs anchor, Christiane Amanpour, who's reported from this region for years, was on the front lines for us, as you know, during the Arab Spring. What have you heard today, Christiane, about whether this was al-Qaeda, a different kind of al-Qaeda, affiliated at all?
Well, clearly, intelligence and security forces are looking into that. We don't really know, and I've been cautioned not to say that it is al-Qaeda in the Maghreb yet. They're still looking for exactly who is responsible.
And today, we were struck by something Secretary of State Clinton said, because I think a lot of Americans have been saying the same thing. How could this happen? She posed this question, in a country we helped liberate. What does this say now about America in this region?
Diane, I can imagine that so many Americans feel really desperate tonight, wondering precisely that question. The good news, Diane, if there can be any in this, is that Secretary Clinton said that this was a small and savage group. They did not represent the Libyan people or the government, and polls bear that out. The majority of Libyans and the Libyan government support the United States. The Libyan officials were very fast off the mark to condemn it today, to call it criminal, cowardly, to praise Ambassador Stevens, and to promise, I spoke to the Libyan ambassador, that they would work with the United States to track down, hunt down, and bring these killers to justice.
And as Martha reported, Libyans carried the ambassador to the hospital.
Exactly right.
Thank you, Christiane. And as we said, other embassies are on alert tonight. And while there is no evidence that a strange report about an anti-Islam film played a role in Libya, it did at the American embassy in Cairo. That embassy swarmed by demonstrators who denounced this mysterious movie. But what is the truth about it? ABC has 2 reporters looking into this incendiary enigma tonight. ABC's Lama Hassan starts us off amid the rumors on the streets of Cairo. Lama.
Today, anger on the streets over the movie titled Innocence of Muslims. Uploaded to the internet, it is 2 hours long and depicts the Prophet Muhammad as a womanizer and pedophile. From protests at the U.S. embassies in Tunisia and Morocco to the streets of Gaza. And here in Cairo, anger.
Well, it's late in the afternoon now and people are still streaming in. The crowd is getting bigger and their voices are getting louder, chanting anti-American slogans. They were just saying, "Al-Mot America," death to America.
This man watched the movie and told us his blood is boiling. He blames America.
Fire a rocket into the embassy.
Muslims believe it is blasphemous to depict the Prophet Muhammad's image in any form.
We love him. We believe that he was the greatest person to ever walk on this planet.
And tonight, as the demonstrations continue for a second night, it is their message that's reverberating across the region. And now we go to my colleague David Wright in Los Angeles on who is behind this film.
Lama, a very long fuse appears to have ignited this controversy, and it's not at all clear where it leads. Today, we started by looking for Sam Basile, who has been quoted claiming to be the writer-director of this video. He described himself to the Wall Street Journal as an Israeli-American real estate developer, now in hiding for fear of his life. But Sam Basile is a dead end, no public records at all. Apparently a fake name.
My name is Steve, S-T-E-V-E. Last name is Klein, K-L-E-I-N.
The only person so far to come out publicly is this man who claims to have consulted on the movie, but again, no proof of that. Who is Sam Basile?
That's a good question. I don't know Sam that well.
Another dead end. We're told that there was a screening on Sunset Boulevard, but that no one came to the theater. Again, no records of that. One final mystery. It appears that someone, not clear who, translated the English language trailer into a dialect of Arabic spoken in Egypt, and that's what the TV stations in Cairo picked up. An example how, in the internet age, it's possible to foment trouble half a world away and still remain very much in the shadows. Diane?
So many questions. Thank you, David, and thank you, Lama. And we turn next and now to a note today from the aftermath of the tragic events in Libya. Republican presidential candidate Mitt Romney under fire for comments he made about the upheaval as it was unfolding. 55 days to go now before Americans go to the polls. Your voice, your vote. And ABC's Jake Tapper has the latest on what happened today. Jake?
Good evening, Diane. President Obama said today that most Americans understand there are times to set politics aside, and one of those times is when Americans overseas are in direct threat. And then President Obama took a direct political shot at Mitt Romney, suggesting he's not prepared to be commander-in-chief. As he condemned the attacks, the president today promised justice would be brought.
There is absolutely no justification to this type of senseless violence. None. The world must stand together to unequivocally reject these brutal acts.
And then he left to console shattered State Department employees. Last night, when Americans were still in harm's way and Ambassador Stevens was still missing, Mitt Romney went after the president. The object of his ire? This press release from the U.S. Embassy in Cairo, Egypt, condemning the anti-Muslim movie's attempt, quote, to hurt the religious feelings of Muslims. Romney called it, quote, disgraceful that the Obama administration's first response was not to condemn attacks on our diplomatic missions, but to sympathize with those who waged the attacks. But the U.S. Embassy statement about the movie was made before the diplomatic posts in Cairo and Libya were attacked. When asked about timing today, Romney stood firm. The embassy had tweeted post-attack that its original statement still applied, the campaign said. And as for U.S. personnel still having been in danger?
It's never too early for the United States government to condemn attacks on Americans and to defend our values.
The president responded in an interview with CBS's 60 Minutes.
Governor Romney seems to have a tendency to shoot first, name later. And as president, one of the things I've learned is you can't do that.
But beyond the tone and timing of Romney's attack are larger questions about the president's foreign policy.
American leadership is necessary to ensure that events in the region don't spin out of control.
The president did not take questions from reporters when he came to the Rose Garden today, Diane, but several are outstanding, including questions about security at those diplomatic posts and, more broadly, what more blowback we can expect from the Arab Spring. Diane?
Okay, Jake Tapper reporting in from the White House. And still ahead here in other news tonight, the new iPhone was unveiled, but what's the secret and how is it a secret weapon for American jobs?
ABC World News with Diane Sawyer. Brought to you by Dr. Scholl's.